Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. AMC stock is up 1.17% here at the time of recording this video at $4.35 per share. The fact that AMC stock is green right now to start off this crazy week is a bit of good news in and of itself. Now, we're going to go over all of the news, all of the information that you need to know in regards to AMC and the broader markets, what's coming next. We'll talk about tomorrow here briefly in this video. More on that really in the next video that comes out at 4 p.m. today. But yeah, what's exactly going on in our markets today? You need to hear this information. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you think down below in the comment section. So, like I said, the fact that AMC stock is even in the green today is great news. If you take a look at semiconductors are selling off a decent amount today. Marvell, they had bad earnings last Thursday, and they were down like 11% and some change on Friday, down another 4% today. ARM is down 1.6%. Nvidia was down a lot more. Now you're down 0.2%. You could see a lot more selling in semiconductors, especially coming tomorrow. And everyone kind of knows this. So the fact that semiconductors like Nvidia are not doing worse today, I think is a nod to the bulls, if you will. Now, AMC stock being in the green today is fantastic. Let's take a look at what your broader indexes are doing. The Russell is actually the underperformer today, which is very surprising. Very, very surprising. The Russell is down about 0.5%. The NASDAQ down 0.16%. S&P down 0.15%. And the Dow is down 0.07%. I think a lot of this, I think a lot of this move that you're seeing, selling of the Russell, even the VIX, let's not forget, the VIX is up 5% today. And the markets are not down that much. So why is this kind of important? Well, tomorrow you're going to have your CPI report that comes out. Right here is indicating maybe you get a hotter than expected CPI report. That's at least what you would expect to see or happen if you did get a hotter than expected CPI report. Russell underperforming. That's kind of in line with that. Now, here's the main story on CNBC. It says long-term inflation expectations rise, spelling trouble for the Fed. At the 3-year range, expectations rose 0.3 percentage points to 2.7%, while the 5-year outlook jumped even more, up 0.4 percentage points to 2.9%. The indications are well ahead of the Fed's 2% goal for 12-month inflation, indicating that the central bank may need to keep policy tighter for longer. So yeah, that's definitely not good. That's one of the things that the Fed needs to see or wants to continue to see is inflation expectations remaining anchored and not starting to rise. And today you actually see inflation expectations start to rise a little bit as per a couple surveys. So despite even the Russell 2000 underperforming the other indexes, keep note, on Friday it did outperform. This news today that inflation expectations are rising, is the reason why the Russell is underperforming today. So a little bit of context is important. It's kind of a back and forth tug of war right now, if you will, between the Russell and other indexes. Which one is, doing better or worse on any given day? Today, the Russell's not doing as good. And we can expect to see a tug of war, if you will, for the foreseeable future. Until consensus comes clear, you want to be in interest rate sensitive small cap stocks, or whether you want to continue to be in big tech, right? But again, the fact that AMC stock is up 1.5% and the Russell's down 0.5%, that's pretty good. Now, we did just have the Oscars last night, and it seems like more films are going to theaters. Dune 2 is performing better than expected. So all of those things could be having a positive impact to AMC stock. Today, it looks like Adam Aaron said, the start of March, you're going to get more films starting to go to theaters, and that should be less of a burden to AMC. So fundamentally, there is decent things happening right now for AMC. I wouldn't say fantastic things. It's really kind of business as usual, same old, but that's better than what we have seen recently. Now, again, CPI is going to be coming out tomorrow morning. That's going to be a big catalyst. You also have the ARM lockup expiration, and that means SoftBank, that owns 90.5% of the float of ARM, can start selling stock. So I would expect to see some downside pressure on ARM, a lot of selling pressure there, and that could lead to more selling pressure for the semiconductors. Mix that with maybe a hotter than expected CPI report, and boom, you're not in the greatest of scenarios. Let's just put it like that. Now let's start to get into some of your data specifically with AMC Stock today, like your Ortex data. So far, from hedge funds and institutions, you have seen one order totaling about $20,000 with a positive order value of 100%. This order is a September 20th $5 call, again, for about $20,000. So not a lot of option activity so far, but the option activity that we do have is good, is bullish. You do have a short interest percentage of free float that is dropping a little bit today, surprisingly, just a touch, just a hair, to 12.97%, $146.11 million currently in short positions in AMC. Days covered 2.11, 33.98 million shares that are currently sold short, 44.71 million shares currently out on loan, cost to borrow fees 1.08%, utilization of 64.12%, and a short score of 67.36 out of 100. Cost to borrow fees a little bit higher today at about 3%. Now, if we take a look at what 10-year Treasury yields are doing today, not all too much, but I do expect a big move in 10-year Treasury yields coming tomorrow. You have already fallen a lot over the last 2 weeks or so, from 4.32% down to 4.09%, almost equivalent to one rate cut from the Fed. So I think the bond market is expecting a good CPI report tomorrow. If we don't get that, that's going to be a problem for the bond market, a problem for your small and mid cap stocks specifically. Now, AMC stock with the Stocko Tracker data, as I talked about last week quite a bit and over the weekend, this week is going to be a lot of option, potentially volatility in AMC stock. You have calls in the money, almost 5,000. Calls out the money at about 264,000, puts in the money at about 33,000, and puts out the money at about 112,000. So hundreds of thousands of options for this week's expiration. This expiration in general for the markets has trillions of dollars expiring. And I will say right now, when you have so many people that have been long, that have been bullish, a lot of those options are now in the money for Nvidia, for the Nasdaq, for the S&P, options that people may have bought months ago or years ago. And now the market makers are in a situation because they take the back end of most of those options. So the market makers have been, I wouldn't say losing money, because that's not the business that they are in, but they have a lot of long upside exposure right now, and that's probably not where they want to be. So to see a rejection this week and to see the markets actually fall, well, is not going to be super surprising. And after all, in an election year and seasonally in a fourth year of a new president, you do tend to get downside in the month of March. Now, also tomorrow with the CPI report, it's going to change expectations for Fed policy. So the next Fed meeting is on March 20th. There's a 2% chance of a cut. Honestly, if we were to get a cut at this point, that would be really bad for the markets. So, there's almost no chance of a cut in March. 98% chance of a continued pause. For May, there's only 18.1% chance of a cut, 81.6% chance of a pause. For June, you're pricing in your first rate cut, 59.4% odds, and 28.5% chance of a pause. This is what we really want to be watching, is June, because that's the first Fed meeting that we're actually expecting a cut. We're pricing in a cut. If we get a hotter than expected CPI report tomorrow, this could flip, and you could start to price in a pause through June. And then that might take down the amount of rate cuts that you're expecting for the year. Currently, markets are expecting 1, 2, 3, 4 rate cuts in 2024. Again, a hotter than expected CPI report could push that back down to 3. We were just at 3 about a week or two ago. So to get back down there would not surprise me. March 20th, you're also gonna get a summary of economic projection. So another forecast from the Fed, and we'll get a little bit more clarity to what the Fed's ideas are and what the Fed is planning on doing. Now, for AMC stock over here on StockTwits, you do have sentiment today that is neutral at 54. Yesterday it was bullish at 57. So, a little bit worse there today, but really not a big deal in the grand scope of things. Message volume a little bit higher than it was yesterday. Yesterday was at 40, categorized as low. Today it's at 44, still sitting at low, but a little bit higher than yesterday. And the participation ratio is actually rising. Yesterday it was at 55. Today it's at 56. So more accounts, more people, at least on StockTwits, that are talking about AMC, and I think that's a very powerful thing when more people start to talk about AMC. And again, AMC stock being green today, whereas most stocks in the markets are red. I think that's fantastic, and is pushing more people to talk about AMC. Percent of stocks above their 50-day moving average today is actually rising 0.59% to 57.44%. You've been on an upward kind of climb ever since about the second week in February, when you hit a low of about 43% of stocks above their 50-day moving average. So you're not back to where you were at the highs, 86%. You're not even really close to that, but you're definitely not at the lows either. It does suggest to me maybe the indexes need to fall a little bit more from here, but maybe your average stock is in a decent place. Your latest AI investor sentiment survey from last week showed the bulls were in full control. This survey takes place on Thursdays, so the Friday was the big day where maybe a lot of the bullish sentiment went away or slowed down a little bit. So we'll see what this Thursday's survey does say. By then, you're going to be back in full-blown bull territory, or most likely start to see the bears take a little bit of control here. Bullish investors last Thursday, 51.7%, neutral investors at 26.5%, and bearish investors at 21.8%. Now, as far as AMC stock on a technical basis, yet again, you got rejected at that 50-day moving average. I think tomorrow could be a very big potential breakout for AMC stock if CPI, if inflation does come in lower than expected. Maybe even at expectations would be okay this time around, but expectations are still pretty high, so it wouldn't be fantastic news overall. Now, the MACD is starting to curl down, the yellow line breaking under the blue line. Not the greatest technical indicator there. The MACD has been making great progress recently, ever since you really hit that low back here on February 6th. Overall, AMC stock looks pretty dang good, and I do think the sentiment is pretty washed out here and pretty negative. So any good news for AMC could be really good news. The ultimate best news is a commitment not to dilute shareholders anymore. I don't know if that's going to happen. If it does happen, well, that would be fantastic. I don't know when. Could happen right now. I mean, it could happen tomorrow. It could happen next month. You really don't know with that specific catalyst, but I do think, as someone that has held AMC for a long time, and I'm sure you have as well, it's something that is coming eventually. And I think that's when you get the larger rally. But can AMC rally here? Of course. If you get above that 50-day moving average, next stop is most likely that 100-day moving average at about $6.26 currently. So you could have quite a gap up, if you will, upon the right news. A good CPI report, well, that could do it coming tomorrow. Let me know what you think about this information down below in the comment section. At 4 p.m. today, we will go over specifically what to expect for tomorrow and what my expectations are for AMC stock tomorrow. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. You guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.